Welcome to my channel.
You need to read this. I never read her mail from her friends, but I instinctively knew that I needed to. It should have been obvious. I apologize in advance for the length of this personal story, and also for publishing it anonymously. However, by doing it that way, I wanted to accomplish two things. First, I wanted to get a chance to tell my story of events that happened nearly 30 years ago. Mostly because only a very small number of people know the details, and we never ever talk about it. Plus, I've never had a chance or a forum to tell my story in order to once and for all put it completely behind me. Think of it as therapeutic. The anonymity allows me to say and reveal feelings and thoughts I would never say otherwise. Secondly, so many of the stories I've read here of the betrayal and pain of infidelity ended badly with people full of hatred and bitterness. My story has a happy ending, and I wanted anyone currently suffering from this painful reality to know that it need not end badly. It may not be completely hopeless. In fact, I am a better, stronger, and happier man having overcome that most painful episode of my life. I am now just past my 40th anniversary of my marriage to my first and only wife. By all outward appearances, we are a very happy and well-adjusted couple with 2 married adult children and 5 grandchildren. That characterization is a pretty accurate assessment of our current situation. However, that most definitely was not always the case. My wife and I attended the same high school, but because she was 2 years my junior, we didn't actually get to know each other well until we met at the university, where we both eventually earned a bachelor's and a master's degree. Her degrees were in education, mine in engineering. I will hereafter call her V, which has nothing to do with her real name. V was very popular both in high school and in college, and she had no less than 5 boyfriends prior to me. I was shy and had no girlfriends before our meeting and dating. Because V was very attractive, buxom, friendly, outgoing, and very intelligent, I had a lot of competition while we were dating. She still possesses all these attributes, by the way. However, V quickly lost interest in everyone except me. Her friends were baffled. Why him, they asked her, and no one was more surprised than I was. Although I was very tall and thin and had a reputation for being a very nice and highly intelligent guy, I had nothing else going for me. I am by no means unattractive, but I definitely in the middle of the pack on that score. Let's just say I don't stand out in a crowd. Again, all these attributes still apply to me today. Nonetheless, it was very soon after we started dating the case that we were always together. And though V was a good Catholic girl, and therefore not inclined towards sex, it wasn't long before we were at like rabbits every chance we got. We couldn't keep our jobs off of each other. She tells me even today that I was her first hunter. However, we both have high X drives, so it may or may not be actually true in her case. Although, to tell the truth, it really doesn't matter to me. She is still my first and only partner. Early in our initial dating period, we were not exclusive and dated other people. That period didn't last long, but while it did, there was a certain guy, I'll call him X hereafter. X dated V only once. X was a very jobsome guy, but was a much shorter than me and about the same height as V. I'm 6'4". X and V are about 5'4". From the beginning, I didn't like the guy. He had a reputation as a playboy and clearly wanted to add V to his list of conquests. I demanded that she not see him anymore, and we had a huge fight about it. But when I threatened to move on, V cried and pleaded with me to be with her and only her exclusively. So I did, and a year later, while still at the university, we were married in the campus chapel. I wasn't then, as I am now, Roman Catholic. Now flash forward 10 years and 2 young children later. V was going through a difficult period of her life. I was working long hours as a young engineer, climbing the corporate ladder and leaving all the household and child-rearing responsibilities to V. After our second child was born, V went into a severe depression. We now know that she is genetically inclined toward bipolar depression. She cycled in roughly 6-month cycles between a throat depression and then into a period where she was energetic, impulsive, reckless, and inclined toward grandiose and unrealistic schemes. While depressed, she sat in a dark room, without makeup, in pajamas all day and cried. I had no idea what to do. Then gradually she would come out of it, and she would dress attractively and provocatively, be full of life and laughter, spend money foolishly and recklessly, and she always had some grandiose scheme that she was going to undertake. Her esteem's ex-drive always peaked at that time also. And then one time, while she was on a bipolar high, things suddenly changed. Like so many other people have indicated, I instinctively knew something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what was behind it all. I never dreamed she was cheating on me and projecting her guilt onto our relationship. One minute she was unusually nice and very sweet to me, and a few minutes later she would find fault with everything I said or did. Plus, she seemed to lose all interest in S*X. That should have tipped me off. V was, and still is, one of the kindest, generous, and most loving people I know. And I had never known her to lie or be deceitful to me in any way. The idea of her cheating on me just didn't even seem like even a remote possibility. I did notice that she was buying S*X lingerie and undergarments and never seemed to wear them to bed. In hindsight later, I wondered how I could have been so stupid. All the signs were there. What I didn't know was that while I was at work, X had made his reappearance into my life. He was now a married real estate attorney who made occasional business trips to our city. At first he would just drop by our house and just chat with V for a few hours while I was at work. I had no idea this was happening. My wife had 2 female friends, let's call them Y and Z. Both of these women were in unhappy marriages, and they encouraged V to pursue a relationship with X. I'm sure that is what X had planned all along. But thanks to Y and Z, he didn't have to work very hard at it. Soon thereafter, V told me she wanted to go out to dinner with Y and Z, who were both supposedly in town, and then visit with them. And she let me know she would be in late. What she actually did was meet with X for dinner and then later went to his 4-star hotel room for a 6-hour duck session. She came in at 2 a.m., took a shower, and crawled in bed with me. When I reached out to hug her, she pushed me away with "I'm tired." Like an idiot, I was clueless that anything had just happened. X left town for 2 weeks and then returned. Nearly the same thing happened when he came back, except they had progressed to a cheap motel room, no dinner, and an 8-hour duck session. I have to admire this guy's stamina. I later found out that he did it 6 times in 8 hours, supposedly coming each time. He must have been faking it. However, V wasn't, and later claimed she had 6 orgasms. Well, I guess he's beat my record. Even to this day, I'm only good for 2 at one time at the most. Plus, the Astimesla didn't even bother to use a condom, which, at the time, was the only birth control we used. Anyway, X left town to be with his wife. V decided she had to see him for a repeat performance and concocted a story of why she had to go for a weekend visit to see her friend Y, who lived in the same city as X. She brought the kids with her, left them with Y, booked a hotel room, and tried to get X to come be with her. Instead, he either got spooked or he had moved on to someone else's wife, because he broke it off with her without meeting her. She suddenly realized that she was just being used for someone's personal duck toy, but it was too late. While V was out of town pursuing X, at home she got a letter from her friend Z, and a little voice in my head told me, "You need to read this." I never read her mail from her friends, but I instinctively knew that I needed to. This, by the way, story predates email. Anyway, the letter began with, "Wow. V and X sounds like something out of a Danielle Steele novel. Just be careful and don't get hurt or pregnant. And make sure your husband never finds out." My knees went weak and I had to go to the bathroom to throw up. I was physically ill. I cried my eyes out until she returned home. What happened next was that she tried to deny that anything had happened. Unfortunately for her, her friend Z's letter more or less revealed all the details indirectly. Plus, I found a card that came with flowers hidden in her dresser which said, "Last night was amazing. I can't wait to do it again. Love, X." There was no denying it. Worse yet, she told me she thought she was pregnant. It turned out that it was a false alarm, but that fact made all the worse. What then happened was 2 years of pure heck, where our marriage was on the verge of collapse. We argued and fought all the time, and then made up, and then back to fighting again. I badgered her constantly for details of her affair until she finally, out of weariness, gave in and told me. Everything she told me just made me feel worse. I even went through a ridiculous phase where I imagined my penis was too small. Apparently it's not, especially when compared to his. But anyway, that has nothing to do with my wife's affair. In other words, my self-esteem hit rock bottom, and I even had to take meds for depression for a short while. What kept me going was the kids. I didn't want to give them up. We tried marriage counseling. It helped a little. We went to worldwide marriaging times through our church. That helped a lot. However, the thing that helped the most is that we found a competent doctor that knew how to treat V's bipolar depression with the proper medication. That was 29 years ago. Time has now healed all wounds, and her affair is now a distant memory. Once again, I trust her without reservations of any kind, and we now have a happy and fulfilling marriage. In other words, one where two people are fully committed to each other. And, as strange as it sounds, her affair made me fully appreciate her as yes-times-I and passionate woman who is actually quite good in bed. That's no exaggeration. Our S-times-X life tends to be feast or famine. 3 consecutive days of passionate S-times-X followed by a week or 2 of abstinence, and then we are back at it again. And I make sure that it's not one-sided because I don't want there to be any chance that she's not happy in that department. She goes out of her way to do the same. We're both very happy with at least that part of our life. There are a couple weird things that left over as a consequence of my experience. As silly as it sounds, I am very nervous when I am around any attractive female. And there's no way I would ever be alone with a woman. I'm terrified of giving in to temptation and go out of my way to make sure it doesn't happen. I don't even trust myself to have close female friends. It's not that I am not friendly, quite the opposite. I just don't want a repeat of the past with the shoe on the other foot. I'm also haunted by a recurrent sexual fantasy of my wife having sex with another man. Why do I do this? I haven't a clue. In reality, it is the last thing in the world I would actually want. Even so, it's a major turn-on for me, and on rare occasions when I'm having performance issues, simply imagining that I am a stranger making love to my wife works better than any little blue pill ever could. Try as I like, I can't banish this fantasy, but since it doesn't seem to hurt, I just live with it. So, bottom line, if your spouse cheated on you, there is a glimmer of hope that you can eventually get over it and have a happy marriage once again. It's really hard and painful to do this, but it can be done. I'm living proof that this is true. Follow-up edit to the above. Wow, the interest and popularity of my original post has completely caught me by surprise. Thank you to those of you who had kind words for me. I very thoroughly appreciate them. And though I do consider myself to be a good man, I am not by any means a saint. Like everybody, I've done things I'm ashamed of. It's just that infidelity is not one of them. I would like to answer some of the questions posed to me. To those who said I should not have stayed, I answer. My wife is normally a very kind, generous, and loving person. In fact, she is the most caring, compassionate, and unselfish person I know. No one who knows her would even remotely suspect that she would commit adultery. And hurting me as badly as she did is the single greatest regret of her life. It should be obvious that without genuine repentance, forgiveness is never possible. But there is not even the least shred of doubt in my mind that my wife loves me unconditionally. She loved me even when she was in bed with another man. Sexual lust and desire is not love. Plus, I love her and only her. There is no one else, nor can there ever be anyone else. Of that I am absolutely sure. The fact that she did what she did is probably an indication that almost anyone, probably including myself, is capable of this behavior under the right circumstances. We are all human. Secondly, I was asked if my concern for my children is what kept me in the marriage when the going got rough. Yes, to be completely honest, I probably would not have stayed otherwise. However, being an old-school Roman Catholic played a major role too. In my mind, standing before God and family and promising to be there for better or worse means just that. No one should break that sort of promise lightly if they truly believe in what they just said. I do, and I will not apologize for that belief to anyone. Finally, yes, in spite of what happened, I am currently very happily married. I am not lying or exaggerating about that. Redditor 1, you're a great guy. She's lucky to have you. I would have left her. Redditor 2, hi friend. I have to admit and appreciate you for all your efforts to make the marriage work because of your unconditional love towards your wife. I also see you have crossed the very important stage of cheating depression and have started to understand the real sexual desires and fantasies between your wife and you. I have to say this: further suggestions may be hard to accept. I strongly suggest you to behave like a boyfriend by going back in time and have some in-depth conversation with your wife to know each other's sexual fantasies. Most of the couples in today's world never understand the importance of having a throat conversation about why each other's sexual understanding matters. It is very natural for women and men to get bored of each other after years of marriage, and that after kids the attraction turns low, which is common in any relationship. Most of the men fail to understand that a woman's body goes through more hormonal changes than a male body as age progresses. I strongly suggest you to explore both of your sexual fantasies, and there is nothing harm in it. I promise you, if you work on this, you may also come to know the real wild in you, and it will definitely make your relationship blossom than trying to control. At the end of the day, we all realize that sexual understanding is equally important as money making. Redditor 3. It's not always obvious actually. One time I saw someone named sorry on his device at 12:30 a.m. Couldn't be work texting because it doesn't sound professional. Couldn't have been a friend that I knew of cause I didn't know anyone named H. Then I notice him frantically trying to take iMessage off of his device. This is all without me snooping too. So then I did snoop through his phone while he was asleep. Turns out he had been seeing his ex. I confronted him in the morning and he told me everything, I think. Anyway, after begging me to stay, I told him we could try therapy. I didn't expect it to work, but it actually has so far. Anyway, that's my personal experience. Redditor 4. Your fantasy about your wife being with another man is common and rooted in evolution. Seeing your mate with a competing male activates your desire to mate frequently and often with her to reduce the chances she will have child that is not your own. This is a thing and is called fantasy. Redditor 5. It's great knowing there are others that have had a similar experience to me. I am happy you were able to make things well again. I had a similar experience in my marriage and found out about 8 months ago. Same deal. I could have never imagined my wife committing adultery. If it weren't for my daughter, I may have just split. I still have trust issues and have told her I will probably never have the kind of blind trust I once had. My drinking and empty promises to get better more or less put her in a state of mind that allowed her to do that. It was with someone who I believed was one of my best friends. He had done this sort of thing to several other people who he was supposedly close friends with in the past, but I naively thought he would never do that to me. She had no idea he was like that. I believe he is an narcissist and has no emotional attachment to anybody. He quit hanging out with our mutual friends without even being told he wasn't welcome. I believe he is just upset that he was discovered as a fraud. He isn't who he says he is and always would tell people how good of a guy he was. He made my wife feel real good about herself and then devalued her to try to control her. I thought it was me, but she was so upset over, but she was projecting guilt on our marriage and lying to everyone. That was a lot for an empathic person such as her to carry. I basically knew what was going on for over a month, but didn't have the proof to make a big deal out of it. My patience paid off though. He underestimated me by a mile. I finally hacked her Facebook Messenger and found the evidence. She came clean, but it took a few months or more to get the whole story straight. She is very remorseful though. I still am pretty up and down about it, but she is understanding. We are good though, and she is and was the most loving and beautiful woman I have ever known. I love her very much, and I have learned many things from all of this and have a far greater appreciation for her. I took her for granted that she would just be there no matter what and put her through a few bad years. I changed my own behaviors and things have shaped up for both of us, and it makes life for our daughter better too. Thanks for sharing your story. It is good to know that others have experienced similar issues and came out the other side better than before. Redditor 6. Woe, you are 1 in 1,000 and you did the right thing. The Bible tells us to never become tired of doing good, and the person to reward us is not on earth. Many women have been used and dumped. They have been hurt many times. Cheating wives should stop it and love your husbands, as those cheaters have no bright future for you, and when turning back isn't possible.
Thank you for watching. Comment what do you think about this situation. Don't forget to like and subscribe.